The music stopped mid-minute. Just like the 200 people watching me, they all stopped. Crystal glasses hung suspended in midair. Laughter choked them. The entire ballroom of Hartwell Manor grew so cold I could feel it on my skin. That particular kind of coldness that had nothing to do with warmth, but entirely with what was about to happen. Margaret's hand was in my hair. It wouldn't stop. It held on tightly, gripping, refusing to let go. Her perfectly manicured fingers, which cost her $200 a week to maintain, were tangled in my dark hair, pulling at it. Slowly, deliberately, making sure that every single person in the room could see exactly what she was doing to her own son's wife. "Let everyone see," she said, her voice echoing in the silent ballroom. "Let them see what kind of woman my son actually married." Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to understand something. Before that, if you want to watch stories of how pain turns into strength, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. What you need to understand is that her pulling at my hair was something I allowed. I could have stopped him, but I didn't. I knew everything that was coming, every humiliation, every whispered accusation, every cruel word he had planned for tonight, for 6 weeks. I had a folder on my laptop with recordings of phone calls and everything. I had photos. I had evidence, documents that would chill his blood. Maybe I had a plan to end it all. I had a chance to think as he dragged me by my hair in front of some of Chicago's most powerful families. I shouldn't have stopped him at that moment. Every second he did it only fueled me more, only increased the magnitude of my revenge. So I let him. Let me take you back to the beginning. My name is Elena Hartwell. 3 years ago, I was Elena Voss. And if you grew up in Chicago's real estate circles, you might know that name. But I'll get to that. I met Daniel Hartwell at a rooftop charity event in River North. I was drawn to his captivating charisma. He made me laugh. He seemed kind. When he looked at me, he wasn't looking at my last name or what I represented, but just at the woman standing in front of him, holding a glass of fizzy water. 14 months later, we were married in a small ceremony in Michigan. My father had offered to have a much more lavish wedding, but I refused. It had to be just ours. The only thing I didn't understand at the time was that none of Daniel's possessions belonged to him, but to his mother, Margaret. The Hartwell family was the royal family of Chicago. Old money, old pride. Margaret had been running the family like a corporation since Daniel's father had passed away 12 years earlier, and she had no intention of sharing that control with any woman her son brought home. Whenever we went out for dinner on Sundays, he would always comment on my clothing, belittling me. Suggestions always offered as politeness, that I might need to consider something more appropriate for a Hartwell wife. He would ask questions about my past in front of guests, letting my extremely mundane answers hang in the air as if they were evidence of something shameful. "And your father is in the real estate business?" he would ask, as if he hadn't researched every detail of my family 4 times. Then her daughter Sophia arrived. Sophia Hartwell was 25 and a master at using warmth as a weapon. At family dinners, she'd hug me while praising Daniel's ex-wife. She'd whisper it in my ear, utterly sneaky. Then she'd say strange things like, "Just a hint. Perhaps she's the most dangerous person in the house." The Hartwell family was Chicago's royalty. Old money, old pride. Margaret had been running the family like a corporation since Daniel's father died 12 years earlier, and she had no intention of sharing that control with any woman her son brought home. She started small. Of course she did. Comments on my clothes at Sunday dinners. Suggestions always offered as politeness, that I might need to consider something more appropriate for a Hartwell wife. She'd ask questions about my past in front of guests, letting my utterly mundane answers hang in the air like evidence of something embarrassing. "And your father is in the real estate business?" she'd ask, as if she hadn't researched every detail of my family 3 times. How hardworking. Then her daughter, Sophia, arrived. Sophia Hartwell was 25 years old and a master at using warmth as a weapon. She'd whisper things in my ear while cuddling at family dinners. Daniel's ex-wife made this recipe even better. Just a little hint, from one girl to another. She'd send me articles about marriage counseling, just writing, "I thought this might help," in her notes, then adding 3 pink hearts. Maybe she was the most dangerous person in the house because she disguised her cruelty as affection. Daniel didn't see any of this. Or, he chose not to. In the 14th month of our marriage, I realized he wasn't the man I'd married on the Michigan lakeshore. That man was a performance. Not intentionally cruel, I don't think he had that in him, but still a performance. The real Daniel needed his mother's approval more than oxygen. Whenever he humiliated me at a family dinner, he'd start looking elsewhere. Whenever Sophia's comments, which were like daggers, were on Sundays, Daniel would be updating something on his phone. So he chose to turn a blind eye while his family was hurting me. The breaking point was a Wednesday in February. I was on the phone with my father, a real conversation, a business meeting, the kind I had more often during the period when I quietly returned to Voss Industries, when Daniel burst in. I say burst in because he didn't even knock. He stood there for a minute and listened to me. Then, without saying a word, he left the room and called his mother. I know this because I heard her voice in the hallway. Mom, talking to her father about the Meridian deal. Yes, the downtown development project. She knows. She's involved in it somehow. Then his mother's voice, muffled but clear enough. I knew it. I knew you were hiding something. This is over now, Daniel. That girl has been lying to you since the day she entered our family. I sat quietly on the edge of the bed, still holding the phone, and witnessed something change inside me. There was no anger, no resentment, just complete clarity. They wouldn't finish me off. I would finish them off. I called my father again and said a single sentence. I need you to help me with something. For the next 6 weeks, I carefully, legally, and completely built everything I could. My father had never taught me to do anything half-heartedly, let alone fail. I discovered Margaret had planned this anniversary party for one reason: to expose me. Yes, this time someone knew what was coming and was preparing for it. She had hired a private detective who had found pieces of my true identity, enough to construct a story, but not enough to understand what it meant. She planned to stand before 2 of Chicago's most powerful figures and expose Elena Hartwell's lies about who she was. Finally, the party night arrived. I dressed specially for the night, the kind that wouldn't draw attention. I wanted all eyes on Margaret when the time came. I knew what she was planning. I knew exactly when she would make her move. I just wanted her to make the move first. She made the move I wanted at exactly 9:55 p.m. Suddenly, the music stopped. A chill filled the room. Despite all the coldness, her fingers began to run through my warm hair, and she was talking. Did you see what I'm doing to everyone who's against me, in front of all the important people in the city? She said, when the door across the hall creaked open. It was like the best part of a movie. That door opened, and a sly smile spread across my face as I anticipated what was about to happen, and guess who walked in? At that moment, Margaret cleared her throat. The sound echoed like a hammer in the silent ballroom. 200 people unconsciously leaned forward. That was one of my father's talents. I want to thank you all for being here tonight, she began, releasing my hair and stepping forward, adjusting her dress as if nothing had happened. As if she hadn't just dragged her bride by her hair in front of Chicago's most elite. I called you here not only to celebrate Daniel and Elena's anniversary, but because I believe honesty is the foundation of this family. And tonight, I have some honesty to share. She turned to look at me and gave me that wicked smile. I had spent 2 years learning every variation of Margaret Hartwell's smile, and this was the smile she saved for those moments when she rehearsed, that particular arrangement of teeth and disdain. My daughter-in-law has been keeping a secret, she said. Important things. About who she is. About her family. About why she actually married my son. Sophia was already prepared to be on the side of the liar, or rather, her mother. We hired someone, Sophia said, her voice softened with feigned regret. Because we love Daniel. Because we needed to know the truth. She held a thin, perhaps 15-page file. I recognized it immediately. The private investigator's report, fragments, guesses, a story based on about 25% of the truth. Elena Voss, Margaret announced, the name making its impact felt. That's her real name, not Hartwell, not the simple girl with a humble background that she introduced to our family. All this time, she's been connected to Voss Industries, one of the largest real estate development companies in the Midwest, and she never once told Daniel. She never told any of us. Giggles from the crowd caught my attention. Daniel was standing by the bar. I watched his face. Confusion, pain, calculating how to get through this moment while maintaining his mother's approval. He had looked at me with feelings I once thought were love. Now I understood what it was. A show. He married you for access, Margaret said to him, her voice trembling with a familiar emotion. For our connections, our name, our position in this city. He used you, Daniel. He used all of us. The moment had come. I had waited 6 weeks for this moment. I straightened my dress and began to speak in a clear voice. You're right, Margaret, I said. Her voice grew louder with surprise. No one had expected such a reaction from me. My name is Elena Voss. My father is Richard Voss, the founder of Voss Industries. I paused to understand the impact. But you've only found half the story. And unfortunately, the part you've missed is the crucial part. I headed towards the entrance of the ballroom. Father, I said, you can come in now. Richard Voss walked through those doors as always, as if the building had been constructed specifically to frame his entrance. 62 years old, with silver hair, he possessed the kind of quiet authority that made the rooms rearrange themselves. Behind him walked 2 lawyers carrying leather portfolios and his personal assistant holding a laptop connected to the main screens of the ballroom. An expression I had never seen before appeared on Margaret's face. It was one of shock. Richard Voss, someone whispered from the crowd. Then another voice. Then 10 voices. Because everyone in that room knew that name. Not from real estate, but from banking. Yes, in that sector, my father was a brand that would be Margaret's undoing. 3 years ago, my father had quietly diversified. Voss Industries remained his public face. But the acquisition that no one associated with his name, a private banking group with assets in the Midwest, was the piece Margaret's investigator had completely overlooked. My father came up to me and kissed me once on the forehead, took my hand. Then he turned back to the room and said, "Good evening. I'll keep it short because I think the documents will tell the whole story." He gestured to his assistant. The screens in the ballroom began to flash. Hartwell Capital, my father said. The financial backbone of the Hartwell family business. It currently has $11 million in outstanding loans. The first document appeared on the screen. Loan agreements, dates, signatures. These loans are held by Voss Private Banking. This means that for the past 3 years, the Hartwell family fortune has been kept afloat by my daughter's family. Vincent, that is, Margaret, grabbed the edge of a nearby chair. The Hartwell property, my father continued. The property we are standing on is mortgaged against collateral held by Voss Banking. The main financing for the Meridian Development Project, which Daniel has been managing for 18 months, is provided through a shell company called Lakeview Capital Partners. He paused briefly. I own Lakeview Capital Partners. I was about to look at my father, thinking this was too much, when I remembered the pain in my hair and continued to enjoy the situation I was in. The silence in that room now had meaning, almost a texture you could press on, because it was ours. I want to be very clear, my father said, his voice echoing effortlessly, as it always did when he won. My daughter did not marry Daniel Hartwell to gain access to this family's wealth or connections. She married him because she loved him. She chose to keep her past hidden, because she spent her whole life watching people care more about the Voss name than about herself. He looked directly at Margaret. You saw exactly what she feared. You looked at her and saw that she wasn't worth it. Considering her performance tonight, I can say that her instincts were right. Sophia took a few steps back. Daniel hadn't moved. I guess he was waiting for his mother to speak. I slowly walked towards him. The 200 people in the hall were looking at me. I stood in front of him and looked him straight in the face. I loved you, I said softly. I truly loved him. Without lies or deception. I wasn't saying this for the people in the hall to hear, but because it truly came from my heart. I just said it to him, as I had sincerely said it 3 years ago on a lakeshore in Michigan. I loved you when we married. I loved you when your mother scrutinized me in front of the family at every Sunday dinner. I loved you when Sophia sent me those messages and you pretended not to notice. I loved you when I heard you calling your mother from the hallway in February. He stood there speechless. At that moment, I couldn't help but wonder if his heart ached even a little. You had only one duty, I said. Just one. To stand by my side. Marriage only asked that of you. And you never did it. Not even once. Elena. His voice trembled. I didn't know. I didn't understand what was happening. You understood enough to call your mother. She had no answer to that. None at all. I pulled an envelope from the small bag I'd been carrying all evening. I handed it to her. Divorce papers, I said. My lawyers prepared them last week. I've already signed them. I placed the papers in her hand and stepped back. I'm not getting anything from this marriage. Not the apartment, not the accounts, nothing. I entered with my own name and I'm leaving with hers. When I turned to my father, I saw him looking at me with proud eyes, an equal mixture of pride and heartbreak, the peculiar look of a parent watching their child suffer and yet cope with it. The police commissioner, who had arrived silently with my father's group, approached Margaret. I hadn't announced this part beforehand. It was a little surprise I kept to myself. I love surprises like that. You had only one job, I said. Just one. To stand by me. That's all the marriage asked of you. And you couldn't even do that once. Elena. Her voice trembled. I didn't know. I didn't understand what was happening. You understood enough to call your mother. She had no answer to that. None at all. I pulled an envelope from the small bag I'd carried with me all evening. I handed it to her. Divorce papers, I said. My lawyers prepared them last week. I've already signed them. I placed the papers in her hand and stepped back. I'm not getting anything from this marriage. Not the apartment, not the accounts, nothing. I entered it in my own name and I'm leaving with it. I turned to my father. He was watching me with that expression he'd had my whole life, an equal mixture of pride and heartbreak, the peculiar look of a parent watching their child suffer and yet cope with it. The police commissioner, who had arrived silently with my father's group, approached Margaret. I hadn't announced this part beforehand. It was a little surprise I'd kept to myself. Mrs. Hartwell, he said, we have some questions regarding tonight's incident, the physical altercation, and some additional matters your former business partner brought up last month. She glanced at my father's lawyer. The assault complaint was filed an hour ago. Margaret's hand went to her throat. The diamonds around her neck reflected the light beautifully. This, she began. Madam, he said gently, your lawyer needs to be here as well. I didn't watch what happened after that. I didn't need to. My father put his hand on my shoulder, and that's when I understood that good always wins. As the police took Margaret away, I was savoring being Elena Voss again, just like in the old days. If you enjoy watching stories like this, where pain turns into strength, you're in the right place. If you want to stay strong, you're welcome to my channel. From paint to power.